How many of you remember the teacher who made, or teachers who made a significant difference in your life? Eh? Everybody in this room, right? So teachers have a most profound role, function, job, capacity. Errol Miller is a consummate teacher. First of all, he does not take your easy answers. He does not take your sloppy thought. He challenges, he draws out, he provides information, he lets you think, he lets you problem solve. Most of all, he welcomes your intellectual challenge of his. He's not afraid of questions. He's not shy about saying, you know, I don't know, but I shall find out, and let us do it together. It is that quality as a consummate educator that comes through loudly and clearly in this book, because he makes the history, the epic history of Jamaica, come to life in a way that only really, really good educators can stand up and do for young learners. But he's also a remarkable storyteller. And if you've been in the company of good storytellers, you know that they don't need a lot of props to get your attention. It is the word, it is the putting together of the ideas. It is the pace at which they tell the story. It is the way they bring you into the story so that you can see yourself in it. Errol Lawrence Miller is the son of Percy and Joyce. He has 5 brothers and 5 sisters. And so in that size of a family, you had to learn, right, to be heard, how to be heard, how to be seen, how to stand out. He was brought up in the Anglican Church, but has been a member of Bethel Baptist Church for several decades. A close look at Professor Miller's career reveals that the various posts that he has held are not the achievement of goals that he had set for himself or the realization of personal ambitions. Rather, they were the result of invitations to serve. He has been a servant leader. He has been a disruptor. And with this book, he has brought a great disruption to our tendency to pat ourselves on the back, to our tendency to become complacent, to our tendency also to not document and to not see how far we have come. He has come with this book disrupting those things. He has also come to call us to account for what it is that we have done with our turn at the wicket of governance, whether that has been political governance or in our civil society organizations, in our faith-based organizations, etc. He has had a rather unique professional and public service career, which all in this room are familiar with. He also served as an independent senator at the time when one of those exciting moments in our history when the opposition at the time, the People's National Party, had not contested an election. And so how to bring voices of dissent into the House was a big question. Errol Miller was one of those independent senators. And so, it is my great, great pleasure, as one who benefited tremendously from Errol Miller's gift as an educator, from his exemplary demonstration of what servant leadership means. Because when I got to the Michael College, he was principal, just on the last leg of being principal. And he led that institution in the 70s when there was much talk of the importance of the majority of people of the country and of their capacity and of the necessity to create an inclusive Jamaica. So I thank him for that example and ask him to come to the podium to share with us.
Madam Master of Ceremonies, the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson, the Honorable Bruce Golden, Sir Hilary Beckles, Lady Beckles, my pastor, Reverend the Honorable Bertha Taylor, my friend, who as she said, we never knew each other personally, we knew of, but we met on December 19th, 2000, and we have become friends. On behalf of Dr. Sharon Miller, the Maroon Igbo, she's named Ro, so understand that. Let me also recognize Dr. Peter Phillips, because his father was my mentor. Dr. Barnett, Archbishop Reese, family and friends all. My colleague as well from Calabar. We know him as Billy, but he's really Clarence. Justice. Mrs. Maxine Henry Wilson, the only person I really knew well before I joined the Electoral Commission. Colleagues all. When I became chairman of the Electoral Commission, I told my best friend in life, Carl James, I was going to institute the matter of beginning meetings with prayer. One of the good things friends are for is to tell you the truth. He says, Errol, remember this, everything in Jamaica begins with prayer, but God who knows what happens next. So although I didn't, it is Mrs. Fiber Clarity and Dr. Thompson and Mrs. Henry Wilson and others who did most of the praying. What I had to do every time was that when, as Mrs. Dr. Pine McClarty mentioned, some of the meetings became very boisterous. Some of the language used was not for Sunday school. And sometimes I lost my cool, having said colleagues, and there was no response. I had to go back to those persons and ask forgiveness. And to tell them it was the heat of the moment. So I thank you for all that you said. And this evening seems to be one of confession. I really have, when Reverend Bertha Taylor said that as a confidence, he has learned from me, I have been to him for guidance in those conversations. because perplexed by what it meant to be a believer in the circumstances, I didn't turn to any other, because it says that your pastor is in charge of you. And I went to him. If I'm hearing now that he's learning from me, this is confession. Archbishop Reese, we're moving. And this is not in a cubicle, it is in public. So let me immediately confess as well that, as Sir Hilary says, we have been friends for a long time. I can remember one 11th of August, himself, Lady Mary, Sharon and myself met on the beach in Montego Bay. And we commiserated with Lady Mary that she wasn't born on the 11th. But to hear him bring this down to an incomplete miracle, to continue that conversation, I would say democracy will always be an incomplete miracle, because it is not a destination. It is constantly a work of principled practice by those of conscience and character. We are on our own journey. It will never be declared complete. I have to say that I have been acquiring new friends, and I'm going to confess this, and I hope he doesn't mind it. I didn't know the Honorable Bruce Golding that well. We interacted. But as he helped me through this book, with his perceptive reading and the nonchalant ease with which he remembered things, and as he spoke, you saw it, and his incisive mind, I said to him, you know, Bruce, we have to become better friends now. And I am always better friends with those who are not in politics, because politicians in power always believe you're coming for something. And there's one thing I've tried to steer clear of, is any favor. Because you don't know what may come back in return. But I do hope. And he said he don't know if I've helped him. He has taken, believe you me, I have taken all that he has said, because he has given me first-hand confirmation with such ease. You know, brought up Baptist, go to a Catholic school, married to a Seventh-day Adventist. Don't ask me but somebody of character, as I've come to appreciate it. Because on many occasions, when the very convention we spoke about, in Parliament, he was the most eloquent articulator of what that was and the dangers involved. And just as there have been few prime ministers across the region that have left a party, formed a new party, and come back to the party and take it over and become prime minister. I mean, that's just not on. And then I have to confess as well that I've known the Honorable PJ for a very long time, and we have been good friends. We have had quarrels, believe you me, but we understand each other. And he has this habit of picking up the telephone and calling. On a few occasions, it drove my office in the university a little crazy, because they came in and said, somebody called, I said it was PJ. And, you know, when you undertake something like what I've written, I say a little bit more about it. There come periods of great doubt as to whether it's worth the while, the effort, and all of that. And he has been reading it, just in a similar manner to Bruce. And he called me one day, and, it says, "Student Patterson here." I thought I knew the voice, but Student Patterson? So then they clarified, "PJ here." And he said he was learning something from the book. Now, understand the old boy system in schools. I was a little boy, and he was a big boy. That has remained through life. Can't get so for him to say Student Patterson because he was learning something, said to me, "This is worth the while." I also have to confess that although Sir Hilary been my good friend, when it came down to who it was, Ian, that publishers had convinced me that, look, you've written one book, but it can't stay as one, it has to be two. And therefore, somebody had to write the foreword for the second book. I was fearful, really fearful of asking my good friend, because I know him. And he's a genuine historian. I just love history. And PJ said to me, "You have to ask Hilary." And when I called him, he was off the plane in the airport, and he didn't hesitate. And then the other confession is this: he has written a foreword for the colonial years, and he says in it that I have the eye of a constitutional lawyer. Now, let me tell you something. I have had some tutelage in the law without understanding all of its terms. First was when I was independent senator with Dr. Lloyd Barnett as the leader of the group. And each week as we went to the Senate to discuss bills, I heard of what it was to be reasonable and objective, but the law had a different definition from science, where I come from. But I learned that. And then in the Electoral Commission, there's a gentleman named Justice Clarence Walker, very meticulous. I learned from him about what is a notorious fact. I thought a fact was a fact, but one that has become a notorious fact. And then from the civil side of the law, we heard how you should approach other things. But then in the course of the Electoral Commission, I, in my naivety, once or twice took advice from persons who were not senior counsel and went ahead with certain things only for senior counsel lawyer Patterson to remind me. And then I didn't understand it at first until 5 years later, when the elections were postponed, what it really meant. And then in writing the book, the constitutional eye of what Sir Hilary says really comes because really he's a lawyer who loves politics, but his real thing is in the law. And so as I imperfectly expressed things that I thought that were important constitutionally, the refinement came from him telling me where to go and look for things. So I want to thank you all for this moment. But in saying this, I want to make the point that when you take on a project that nobody asks you to do, labor on it consistently for over 6 years, work a range of 6 to 12 hours per day, 6 days for the week, for nearly 3 years, thanks to COVID. lurking somewhere in the background. And you know you are in the highest risk group because of it. When it reaches to the point of completion, it is a red letter day. And that is today for me. There is no turning back. And so I thank everybody who is here. Sorry, who is or are, who are here. I'm constantly being, it will come back again, I'll make the point. Who are here and online. I thank you for celebrating this moment with me. Thanks to all of you who celebrate this day, and I say it from my heart, who are in person and on live. And I say, above everything else, to God be the glory. I have to say thanks to Ian Randall Publishers. I see him in the background, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying he was my student, who has created, along with his lovely daughter, Miss Christine Randall and family, the publishing company in the Caribbean with an unparalleled catalog of Caribbean publications. I couldn't think of anyone else to approach. Again, I wondered if they would take it on. And when I presented, I wrote one book. And then Christine said to me, Prof, people are not reading books these days that are over 1,000 pages. So it has to be broken into two. And then applying the principles of curriculum development and of semesterization of courses and all of those things, each has to stand on its own merit, which means that conceptually and in content, each book has to stand on its own. You can't assume that people are going to buy or read both. So I'm thankful today that what is being launched, although one is still to come, Elections and Governance, Jamaica on the Global Frontiers, 1663 to 1962. And Elections and Governance, Jamaica on the Global Frontiers, 1962 to 2016. I realize, and this is the independence years, that Ian Randall Publishers are taking a considerable risk. Now, with the help of Mrs. Burrell Francis, the Pearl of Editors, as you heard me already, I've already made a few grammatical errors, which my family stands in fear of, and I have suffered many humiliating experiences from I was a little boy, because what is in my head and what comes out on paper are not always congruent. Mrs. Burrell Francis helped me to overcome many of these, that head on paper and voice, and I wish to thank her and Ian Randall for doing this. But here is the irony, which I can't miss as a teacher. And it is that after the considerable investment that the world has made in literacy over the last 6,000 years, and every new report comes out as how to make more people literate, we are now in a world that is fast going back to what was before writing was invented. you have pictograms with the aid of modern ICT technology, and now memes. The captions on packages of clay or scrolls of papyrus are now tweets. Everybody is just for the video clip and the sound bite. Nobody is reading. And the most literate people who have moved into not only being literate, but literary. The difference is that when you are literary, you can read between the lines. They don't want more than one page of lines. In other words, what I'm saying is that to publish 2 books, one of over 500, a little over 500, and one probably about 700 pages in these age, my greatest anxiety is that Ian Randall Publishers will recover in terms of finances and from the investment that they have made in this book. Now, I would be less than honest to say that I am not interested in any financial returns, and the blessings may spill over on me as a retiree. But I realize the great risk that they have taken with me, and I wish to thank Ian Randall Publishers most profoundly. I was blown away when I read the invitation, I was telling you, to see that my alma mater, the University of the West Indies, has associated themselves with these 2 books in a way that exceeds anything that I could expect through their global reach with television and social media. Vice Chancellor, and it's done without charge. So I thank my alma mater for being the ones to launch this occasion this evening here for all of that. I wish to thank Mrs. Carol Narcisse for moderating so ably this evening's program. She will tell you that until I called her and asked her the favor to do this, we had never really spoken about any of these matters before in life. I have had the joy of the teacher. As she mentions, Mrs. Graham, Cynthia Graham, who is sitting there, was the office manager and my secretary at MICO for the 8.5 years that was there. And when I went to MICO as principal, I was the 2nd youngest member of staff, so I was in need of guidance. And she often called me, she's the only person that had ever questioned me as to whether I knew what I was doing. Because I got an offer to go and work with a firm with an international agency overseas. Contract signed. The only thing that was to make it legal and effective was for me to sign. And I was dictating a letter saying I can't do it. And it was in US dollars with benefits for children and all those kinds of things. And I tell her I was writing back to recommend somebody who actually got the job. And I remember the day she said to me, Dr. Miller, do you know what you are doing? I hope also that Sir Hilary understands from reading the book why it was that when my family was in Barbados and he invited me to take on a post there, which would have been better for me financially as well as with my family. I told him I couldn't do it, and I hope he understands why. So, you know, we have all of these things when we say friends in this room. And I wish to say that Jamaica and the Caribbean is a small place. The degrees of separation are very close, and especially among a certain group of people. I also want to thank my son Yakengele for his rendition in his own inimitable style of the national anthem that was played, Jamaican national anthem. Dr. the Honorable Archbishop Emeritus Narcisse, thank you for your prayers, which invoke God's presence, which in its body reflected what we are doing here today. And I wish to say to you, I'm not Roman Catholic, but you're a saint, if ever there was one. And I don't need to recite all of the reasons for this, because you have been with us in all of the things done. Reverend Bertrand Taylor, I have been the beneficiary of your messages, Bible studies, books on Christian discipleship for 50 years. If you go on Bethel Baptist Church website to the 10 a.m. service on Sunday the 13th of November, you will listen to that message, a profound message on the Good Samaritan and who is your neighbor. I wish I had heard that message before I read some of the things that I wrote in this book, because I wrote about that with Locks, not with the clarity. And if you want to read a book, an exposition on the Beatitudes, the best of attitudes by him, you will see the consistency. So I disavow any claim that I taught him anything or was. Listen, there is no theologian or preacher that has been most consistent in word and life. If any one of us who are members of the Bethel Baptist Church don't make it through the pearly gates, is not for any default on his case. I'm serious. So thank you for those words. Dr. the Honorable Dorothy Pine McClarty, thank you. Three of us met for the first time, as I said, on the 19th of December 2000. But you have outlasted us all. You served on the commission till 2019. To date, the longest serving member of either the EAC or the Electoral Commission. And for 7 years, its chairman. Now, I've written it, so I'm just telling you a little thing here. In 2015, September, the key, the cornerstone of all the progress Jamaica has made with respect to its electoral system stems from a convention that cannot be enforced in law, because the Electoral Commission is the inferior body to Parliament, and therefore it cannot direct the Parliament. And Cabinet wrote to the Electoral Commission that it was going to break this convention. And the Honorable Pine McClarty wrote back to the cabinet saying that the commission was a commission of the parliament and does not take instruction from the cabinet. And will take instruction from parliament. And that the convention rests on a unanimous decision of the commission. And 2 members of the commission were members of the cabinet. I leave you to figure it out. And cabinet back down. And Mrs. Carol Narcisse was the organizer on the ground of civil society organizations in Jamaica to say, we support, and you have to go by the commission. I leave you with that conundrum that 2 women stood up to the boys. And preserved that convention. I am convinced that the Honorable Dr. Burchell Taylor is an offspring of the greatest and most effective oligarch that Jamaica has ever known, who stopped preaching in Jamaica for 14 years. By Methodists, starting with Methodists, Baptists, Congregationalists, Moravians. The providence of God is remarkable. That it should turn out one of the greatest exponents of the gospel coming from that. In fact, apart from a grave and a street, Simon Taylor is no longer, except that both of these gentlemen have operated from Bale Royal, which was his residence. I've already mentioned the Honorable PJ and his assistance in this matter. And I've tried to explain, and you have to read the book for this, to understand the contribution that both of these gentlemen have made to us. But let me say this about them. They walked away from power in good health. They walked away from maximum power without being rejected by the delegates of their parties and by the electorate. Most prime ministers, we do not yet understand, I believe, the power of prime ministers. They have considerable power. To walk away from that power, not having died, not having been rejected, and on their own account, it's only few that belong. And we in Jamaica have produced 3 of those few, and 2 of them are with us today. I don't know if we understand and recognize the persons among us and their value to this society. I want to thank Sir Hilary for his single-minded, blinkered leadership of the University of the West Indies, that it now ranks among the 1% of the over 50,000 institutions in the world that calls themselves universities. And of the top one, and within the top 100 in Latin America. For those of us who are UWI graduates, we are proud of our alma mater and what it has achieved. And whatever may be the difficulties and the problems of getting there, I hope the governments and the people and things will straighten those out, because it is a magnificent achievement. Especially in these circumstances, when people of multi-ethnic societies that are small, as Dr. Pine McClarty said, the big little countries, people who are automatically defined as banana republics, the chauvinism that exists, that dismisses small states, and black people as not mattering, and in the area of intellect and academic excellence, matches the best in the world. That is an achievement for the Commonwealth Caribbean that is not North American, and an addendum in Latin America, and contradicts all of the stereotypes of small countries of multi-ethnic composition that are not wealthy and powerful and large. I thank you on behalf of all graduates. I will not go, notice I'm not going into anything in the book. I'll say this. One of the things that Sir Alistair McIntyre, previous Vice Chancellor of the university, said, he said they were having a farewell function for him after 25 years in the UN system. And somebody came up to him and said, "We know the people of the Caribbean." He says, "What?" He says, "Yes, we know people from the Caribbean." So why? He says, "Well, Asians speak to Asians. Africans speak to Africans. Latin American speaks to Latin America. Europeans speak to Europeans. Caribbean people talk to everybody." And I add, with a sense of equality, because we are comfortable in our skin, that we all share a common humanity, and we are subservient to none. It would be an act of delusion on my part and excessive friendship on the other if you thought that all of these people who are here in this room and who have spoken have come because of me. Seriously. I don't engage in delusion as much as I can avoid it. I like to face the realities of life. And the reality of what we are celebrating this evening is that I'm speaking to people who have been part of this exercise that we are talking about, who have been contributors to it in one way or another. And also, I'm speaking to people who, although most, and I'm exempting Carol, have retired from the fray, continues to care about it, are committed because this is how they have lived their lives. And they know it can be overturned, and they are here to bear witness to its validity. Jamaica has two sets of people in politics. I'm going to tell you this, that I discovered. If you want to know, I've operated on the diagonal. It's a recognition of things, and I operate on the diagonal. You have people who hold power and realize its benefits and want to continue it even when they are in opposition. So they are not about to give away the store. And you have people of yesteryear who have suffered from it and don't want to continue in the suffering. There was a time, for example, when the PNP claimed that Jamaica was PNP country. And Bruce became Prime Minister, and there was nowhere for the there is no office of the leader of the opposition. And he built one. And the joke among PNP people was that he built it because he would soon be returning to it. I don't know where the joke is now. But that is one line. Then you have people who are now in opposition and are feeling the brunt of what could happen with power. And they don't want to perpetuate it. And people who were there and knew it and said we shouldn't go on with this. And those are the fault lines. And they cross political parties. And let me tell you, opposition and government flips with elections. So the same thing one was saying a month ago, the other one is now saying, and what the other one was saying, they are now saying, and all that has changed is that the electorate have changed them. I wish, therefore, for all of us to recognize what I've tried to do, and I leave you to see it. I've tried to write the story of elections and governance in Jamaica for the last 350-odd years from a different perspective, from the perspective of the people, not of the great powers and the clever politicians who continually outsmart themselves. You know the English phrase, too clever by a half. I've tried to write it from the point of view of those who are eligible to vote, those who register to vote, those who vote, those who offer themselves as candidates, and those who run the system, because they constitute the people. I've tried to write it from the position of those who call themselves Jamaicans and decide that Jamaica is home. It don't matter what they want to do with the home, because in those that call it home, there are really two sorts. Those who want to appropriate the life, liberty, and labor of others with impunity and expect a military solution in holding them in that position. And those who say no, out of conscience and character, say we share a common humanity and we are all made in the image of God, and we should have equitable access to be decent human beings from our labor that we put in. I hope, and I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this evening. You have been more than patient. And I hope that I would have disabused you if you read it, that there were good old days to which we should return. There never was. What we have before us is what we can construct for our future based on our faith in God and our commitment to brotherhood. Thank you.
And so after that, there is nothing else to say except to ask that we turn thanks. Hope you know that Jamaican phrase. We turn thanks to all those who served, who have served us as a nation and have brought us to this 60th anniversary. We recognize Mr. Golding, who has to leave us at this point. And so could I ask you please to just stand and applaud those men and women who have brought Jamaica back from the brink more than once in all sorts of ways. Many of you in this room, in the classrooms that you have taught, in the civil service that you have served in the halls of academia that you have taught, in the corridors of our courts, in our civil service organizations, as publishers of our history, all who are gathered here and online. What you have had this evening is a reminder of where we've come from and a charge for where it is we we can go, should we all decide to play the kind of role that the head table members have played, and to play the role that you who are in this room and who are online have played as well.